I've been remodeling homes for going on 25 years, and I've been helping contractors with marketing for almost 10. And one of the main methods of marketing these days is local services ads. And one of the benefits I have of working with so many different contractors is I get to look at all their numbers and see what's going on out there. So in this video, we're looking at how much leads cost from local service ads across different industries, and just taking some of the data from my clients and gaining some insights that will help you understand like what you can actually expect if you do local services ads for your company. So first of all, what are local services ads? If I type in like remodel or near me, these two ads right here, that's local services ads. So these companies made a deal with Google. Google puts their Google profile up here at the top. If I call, message, or book online, they're gonna pay Google directly for that lead. And so this is probably the safest way to advertise your company. But we need to know like what can we expect if we're gonna try this. So across all the different trades measured, here are the trades. So pressure washing, garage door companies, painting, excavation, pool construction, wildlife removal, plumbing, insulation, and then like remodeling, general contractors, those kinds of things. And you can see here, so that what this chart is showing is what the average cost per lead is, and then what the average number of leads per month. So this is just a sample across our clients. You know, we work with about 200 construction companies of all different trades each year. And so that's where this data is coming from. So it's a nice sample size, but it's not representative of every single company. But some of the trends we can see here is all of this depends on supply and demand. So how much leads cost depends on how many leads there are to go around, how many companies there are trying to buy those leads, and how much money those companies are willing to spend to get those leads. So typically, the smaller the project, so like pressure washing, that's a pretty small ticket item, costs a few $100 usually. Leads for that are going to be less expensive than like remodeling and additions and things like that. Those will be on the higher end. And for you in your neck of the woods, it depends on the supply and demand. For pressure washers, we got $20 average cost per lead, getting an average of 24 leads a month. Garage door companies, $34 a lead. Most of these are going to be repairs. For every 10 leads, there's probably 8 repairs and 2 for installation. Sometimes repairs might turn into an install, but for the most case, those are smaller end projects. Painting, this is showing $37 per lead with 7 leads per month. I would, just based on my own experience, I would say that's pretty good. I'd say that the sample of painting companies we have, this is on the cheaper side, because I've seen painting leads go for $100 or $200 before. But among our clients in particular, they are spending less. Excavators, $42, 10 leads a month. Pool construction, $55 per lead, about 8 leads a month. Wildlife removal, this niche in particular seems to do a lot better on organic. Like a company that's spending $60 a lead and getting 4 leads a month from local services ads might be getting like 20 leads a month organically for like $15 a piece. So that's just what I see across the wildlife removal companies I've worked with. Plumbing, $75 a lead, about 8 leads a month. Plumbing's typically a competitive niche. There's a lot of plumbers out there. They do a lot of advertising. Plumbing's a really easy thing to advertise for, because when somebody needs a plumber, they go to Google, they type in plumber or drain unclog or a drain repair, whatever, and then they just need somebody there right now. People don't usually call for a plumber when they're researching or trying to figure out what they're going to do later. They need it right now. Insulation, $127 a lead, average of about 5 leads per month. Across our installation clients, I think it's probably about 50-50 for commercial versus residential, meaning like, is it a homeowner calling or is it another contractor calling? And so the commercial side of that seems to be fewer and far between, but it's very high demand on the lead side, because if you get a good deal with a general contractor, they might hire you back to do 20 jobs. And so it might not just be one job. And then finally on this list, we've got remodeling and general contracting. So that's $144 a lead on average, with almost 8 leads per month on average. So this has a pretty high spectrum. This chart down here is showing, this is just remodeling, general construction, a sample of the clients and the different prices they pay. So you see at the lowest end, this company's spending $23 a lead on local services ads, and then these guys are spending $221, and we've got all in between there. So that average of 144, that's kind of up here. You can see the majority of them are spending less than that. So it's really just a couple outliers that make that average go up. And also, like I said in the beginning, how much you spend per lead and how many leads you get depends on the supply and demand in your area. And I learned this by looking at companies that are nearly identical. So there's 2 garage door companies in this example. One of them is spending $23 a lead, the other spending $83 a lead. They offer the same services, they charge about the same prices. One of them is in a very low competition market, the other is in more of like a normal competition market. And I call this out because it's good to look, it's good to look at things like this and understand what's going on out there in the world and see what other people are spending to get an idea of what you might spend. But at the end of the day, the only way to know how this is going to work for you and how much money you have to spend to get a lead is to actually do it and track your results. Your results might be better than most people, might be worse than most people. And where you land can only be figured out by trying it. Unless, like, if you were to talk to me, and the only way I would be able to give you a really dialed in estimate of what you could expect to spend is if I'm already helping a company just like you in the same market. Then you're going to get similar results to them. But in general, I work with people all over the country, so it's not too often that I'm talking to somebody who's in the exact same niche in the exact same location as somebody else. So things to know about local services ads, like what dictates how much money you're going to spend, is how many leads there are to go around. Are there 100 leads a month? Are there 10? It just depends on your area, your population, the demand in your area for that kind of stuff. And I interchange supply and demand a lot, but like there's a certain supply of leads and then there's the demand from companies like you who want to get those leads, and it works on a bidding system. So if you're willing to spend $20 but your competitor down the street is willing to spend $40, the leads are going to cost $40 and they're going to get them all. That's just how Google advertising and advertising in general works. Another big factor with local services ads that's kind of in the dark is you have a score with them. So if you are, like, let's say you've been doing these ads for a while, you've been getting calls, but you hire somebody new and they don't answer the phone, and so you miss 5 calls in a row, Google just stops sending you the calls and or makes them more expensive for you. Mostly what I see is they just stop sending them, and it takes you a while to recover from that. So if you're doing these, or if you're thinking about doing these, make sure that you're prepared to answer the phone every single time somebody calls, and be extremely professional on the call. Introduce who you are, tell them who they reached. Hey, this is Chuck from Kyle Construction, and do your best to be professional, get them what they're looking for. Hopefully they're good leads. We've been told by people that work at Google, well, let me back up a second. So if somebody calls, let's say that you're a roofer and somebody calls wanting a garage door, that's not the right lead. They called the wrong company. And Google wants to refund you for that lead. What I've been told by people at Google is if somebody calls you for the wrong service, you need to just tell them that you don't offer that service and basically hang up the phone. That is not my style. When I answer the phone and somebody needs help, even if I can't help them, I still will try to point them towards a company who can, or even try to help them troubleshoot their situation. That's just how I am, and that's, I think, how a lot of people are. Just be aware you're gonna pay for those leads. If you talk to them on the phone too much, you're less likely to get that refund. That's what I've been told. That's been kind of my experience. The way that I look at it is if I buy 10 leads and 5 of them are not great leads, whatever. Like, as long as a few of them are good and I can close a deal or two and make the money, then I don't mind getting some bad leads. That's just part of the game. It's very, very rare to get only good leads. Extremely rare, almost never. You always get junk leads with the good leads. And so you just have to look at it as like, you process these, whether they're good or bad, you just do your best, you roll through them, you don't get too attached to the outcome, and look at the averages. After a few months go by, count all the leads you got, count the estimates you did, count the jobs you closed, count the money you made, make a determination then if it's working. Don't just go off of how it feels day to day, and that'll make your experience a little bit better. So the average of these remodeling leads was $144. So I thought I'd talk about just a minute about the economics of this. Because, when I talk to small time contractors and I say, leads cost about $144, usually it's like, it could be more than that. A lot of times they'll say like, oh, well, that's way too much. Like, I could spend $15 a lead. And if average leads cost $144 for you and you want to spend $15, you're just not going to get very many leads. Or you're just going to get a whole bunch of garbage leads. Like, I could run Facebook ads for you and get you 100 leads a month for cheap, super cheap, but most of them will be absolute garbage. And so it's worth just talking about the economics of this for a minute. So if you get 10 leads, average of $144, you spent $1,444 on leads. Maybe half of those are just not good leads. So now you're down to 5, but 5 of them get estimates, and 2 of those estimates actually turn into customers. So what we do is we just run the numbers. You spent over $1,400 on the 10 leads. You got 2 customers out of it, so you spent $720 to get a customer. This 144 came from remodelers, and so we just look at like, what is the average ticket, like what is your average project worth, how much do you charge for it? Or even better, I like looking at the net profit, because that's really what matters. You could look at gross profit, net profit, but if I'm comparing these leads to maybe referrals or leads that just come in through my website that don't cost me any money directly, then I'm giving it kind of an unfair comparison. Let's say I get 2 customers, I paid $700 a piece, and I make an average of $10,000 per customer. So I spent $720, I made $10,000, and if I'm used to making that $10,000 on free leads and I'm uncomfortable spending $720 a piece, at the end of the day, it's as simple as just raise your price of $720 and cover your marketing cost. So that's just something to keep track of. But if leads cost on average in your area $144, it's because your competitors, the other companies out there that are exactly like yours, are already willing to spend this much. And so if they're willing to spend this much, it's because they figured out how to make it work. And the unlock for you isn't spending less on leads, it's figuring out how to make more from your customers so that you can afford to spend money on leads and actually pay to play. That's the nature of how advertising works, whether it's local service ads, Google ads, Facebook, any kind of advertising. You put a bunch of money in, if it works, you get money out the other end, and then you balance those numbers, make sure you're covering your costs. The last thing I'll talk about is volume. So A lot of people I work with, they need really high volume. They need hundreds of leads per month. And you can see that across this sample, the average number of leads per month on this sample is 11 leads. So if you need 100 and this averages 11, this isn't going to get you all the leads you need. And so the moral of the story is, if you need high volume, you're going to have to do many different types of marketing. And it's kind of a myth. Like, I used to think this, and a lot of people think that, like, oh, if I could just find the right lead source, then I'll get all the leads I need. And it seems like a water faucet in the beginning. Like, when I first started doing Google ads for myself 10 years ago, I thought, oh, if I just put more money in, I'll get more leads out. And I didn't really understand there was a limit to that. Now, maybe that was just me being naive, but I think a lot of people are in the same boat where they don't quite grasp the supply and demand thing yet. They don't know how many leads there are to go around. But the point is, if you need high volume, local service ads, Google Maps and SEO, Facebook ads, billboards, yard signs, referral programs, like, you just got to do all of these things. And if you can average 11 leads per month from 10 different sources, maybe now you're hitting your volume goal. And I like to work my way backwards from the lead sources that generate the highest quality leads, like Google Maps and organic, and like work my way down the list to the things that generate the crappiest leads, like typically Facebook ads or buying leads from Angie and Home Advisor and them. Like, those leads tend to be pretty low quality, but sometimes come in a much higher volume. So starting with the lowest volume, highest quality, and working my way down, that's where I like to start. So all that said, I hope that's helpful and interesting to you. I think diving into these numbers is really fun. If you want me to dive into your numbers, here's your invitation. Find the link in the description. Go to contractors.adaptdigitalsolutions.com. Answer a couple questions so I know who you are. I'll look into your company, your market, your competitors. Takes me just a few minutes to kind of get an idea of what's going on. And then we can get on a 20-minute call and I'll tell you what I see, tell you how my company might be able to help you. Either way, I'd love to take a look. So find that link, and thank you for watching.